You wake up, you commute, you blank, and well, suddenly you're at your desk with a lukewarm coffee and absolutely zero memory of how you actually got there.
Right. It's just a total blank.
Exactly. Your brain essentially blacked out for 2 solid hours because your environment just made all the choices for you. Have you ever felt that?
Absolutely.
Like you're just a passenger in your own body,
Yeah.
operating entirely on autopilot.
It is an incredibly pervasive modern condition. I mean, we slip into this highly automated state where we are physically moving through our day, but psychologically,
Yeah.
we're entirely absent. We are being acted upon by our surroundings rather than, actually making conscious decisions.
That feeling of being a passive piece of luggage on the conveyor belt of life is exactly what we are tackling today. So, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we are exploring how we navigate the physical and emotional spaces in our lives. And we're looking at everything from the mind-numbing, mundane daily grind to massive, overwhelming life transitions.
We really have a remarkable stack of sources to synthesize today. We're looking at a conversational breakdown of daily routines and habit breaking.
Right.
Plus, a very specific guide to navigating the architecture and vocabulary of an airport terminal.
Which is fascinating, by the way.
It really is. And finally, a deeply personal essay detailing the sort of messy, emotional reality of renting a first apartment.
So our mission today is to extract the essential mindset shifts you need to stop feeling like an observer. We want to figure out how to start actively mastering your environment, no matter where you are.
Right. Taking back control.
Exactly. So let's unpack this, because before we can look at navigating new, highly complex spaces like an airport or a new home, we really have to look at the space we inhabit every single day.
Our routine.
Our routine. Our first source gives us this incredibly relatable example of a guy named Paul, who literally describes himself as feeling like a robot.
Yeah, and when you look at the anatomy of his schedule, it becomes very clear how he ended up there.
Oh, for sure.
His day is essentially a masterclass in passive consumption and self-induced stress.
Right. So it starts violently with a blaring, incredibly loud alarm at 6:30 a.m.
But rather than actually getting out of bed, his very first action is to grab his smartphone.
And scroll for 30 minutes.
Exactly. He is lying horizontally in the dark, reading the news, looking at social media, and checking work emails.
Let's pause on that mechanism for a second. We are told this makes him feel busy and stressed before his feet even touch the floor. But what is actually happening in his brain in that moment?
Well, physically, he is resting, right?
Right.
So it's a profound mismatch between the body and the brain. Biologically, when you wake up, your body is producing a natural spike in cortisol.
Okay, to help you transition to alertness, right?
Yes, exactly. But when you immediately bombard your brain with the infinite outrage of the internet and the demands of your inbox, you're hijacking that natural process.
Oh, wow.
You trigger your brain's threat detection system. Your nervous system is pumping out stress hormones, preparing you for a fight or flight scenario.
But his body is completely immobilized under the blankets.
Precisely.
So you're basically flooring the gas pedal while the parking brake is still engaged. It's no wonder he feels exhausted.
Yeah, he jumps out of bed already late, rushes through his hygiene routine, and he's literally eating a piece of toast while trying to shove his feet into his shoes.
Which is then followed by a silent, crowded bus commute.
Right, where everyone else is also just staring down at their screens.
Yeah. He's physically packed in with dozens of other humans, yet entirely isolated. It's a completely automated, disconnected way to exist.
And this inevitably leads to what the source calls the afternoon slump, right around 3:00 p.m.,
Well, we all know the afternoon slump.
where he's so cognitively drained, he either wants to drink 5 cups of coffee or literally sleep under his desk.
But his friend Emily steps in here.
Mm.
And her advice in the source is brilliant because she avoids the typical trap.
She really does.
Like, she doesn't tell him to completely overhaul his life or join a 5:00 a.m. boot camp or become a completely different person.
No, she focuses on what she calls small changes for small victories.
Right. She targets the specific moments where his environment is controlling him, and she inserts these tiny wedges of agency.
Her first suggestion is simple, which is just stop scrolling in bed. Instead, just listen to the environment.
Even if you live in a dense city and all you hear are buses or sirens or city birds.
Right. It is significantly better to anchor your brain in your actual physical reality than to get lost in the infinite stress of the internet.
It forces his brain to recognize its immediate surroundings.
Exactly. It allows him to actually taste his morning toast instead of just swallowing it for survival.
And then she tackles his lunch habit. Usually buys a sad sandwich and eats it while clicking away at his keyboard.
We've all been there.
Yeah. She suggests upgrading to a park lunch, just 20 minutes outside, under a tree, looking at the sky.
Just getting away from the desk.
Right. I actually have an analogy for this. Our brain is basically a smartphone with way too many apps running in the background.
Oh, I like that.
If we eat lunch at our desk, staring at the exact same screen, the work app never closes.
Right.
It's just constantly draining our battery in the background. Getting out to the park physically forces that app to close and resets the device.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize cognitive load. When you stay in the exact same physical environment, your brain does not register a break.
No matter what you're doing.
Right. Regardless of what you are eating or reading, you are still paying the cognitive switching cost.
She also suggests doing simple stretches in the office during that 3.0 BM slump.
Yeah, just standing up, getting the blood moving, instead of relying on artificial stimulants like caffeine.
But the most crucial intervention she suggests is something she calls the finish ritual.
A finish ritual.
This is for when work is finally done at 5:70 p.m. Instead of going home, collapsing on the couch in his work clothes, feeling completely drained.
And passively watching random TV shows until he falls asleep.
Right, exactly. She tells him to consciously signal to his brain that work is over. The ritual is to change out of his work clothes immediately upon getting home and put on comfortable home clothes.
And she pairs this clothing change with 15 minutes of what she calls growing.
Growing?
Yeah, not working, not passively consuming media, but growing, like cooking a fresh meal with real garlic and onions instead of just microwaving a frozen block.
Or reading a book.
Exactly.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second. Changing from slacks to sweatpants or a cotton t-shirt seems incredibly trivial.
It does sound simple.
How does putting on a different shirt actually rewire someone's stress levels?
Yeah.
I struggle to believe that taking off a tie suddenly cures burnout.
Well, it seems trivial until you understand the psychology of boundary setting. There's a concept known as enclothed cognition.
Enclosed cognition.
Yes, which is the systematic influence that our clothes have on our psychological processes.
Okay, interesting.
By physically shedding the uniform of his workday, he is creating a demarcation line. When we blur the lines between our professional and personal spaces, our nervous system never receives the signal that the threat of work is over.
Yeah, okay.
The physical act of changing clothes is a behavioral cue telling his brain, I am no longer a worker. The demands of the office are no longer relevant to my survival right now.
So it's about forcing the brain to acknowledge a transition.
Exactly.
And I love how Emily frames the phone scrolling habit in general. She says that by putting the phone down, you are actively choosing your own thoughts instead of merely reading other people's thoughts.
Which is the very definition of agency. When you are consuming a feed, an algorithm is dictating your emotional state.
Right.
When you sit in silence and cook a meal, you are the author of your own internal monologue.
So if the finish ritual helps us reclaim our agency in our private daily lives, what happens when we are forced into massive public spaces that are actively designed to strip that agency away?
Because we don't just live in our apartments and offices. Exactly. Which brings us to the architecture of the airport.
Right. Our source takes us directly into Terminal 3 of Toronto Pearson International Airport.
It's massive.
It is. And an airport terminal is perhaps the ultimate example of an environment built entirely around processing masses of people with ruthless efficiency.
An airport is basically a giant sorting machine for humans.
That's a great way to put it.
We are the packages. The source details a very specific taxonomy of movement here. You have the arrivals area and the departures area.
You have the hierarchy of luggage, too.
Yes. Checked baggage that disappears under the plane, the carry-on that stays with you, and the personal item.
There is a massive lexicon of control. Dropping off, picking up, boarding, deplaning.
The terminology is incredibly rigid because the environment requires absolute compliance.
It does. You have the holy trinity of documents.
Right. The ticket, which is merely your proof of purchase.
The boarding pass, which is your temporary, highly restricted authorization to enter a secure zone. And your ID, which verifies you are the biological entity attached to those documents.
Exactly.
But let me challenge you on this. I understand that an airport is a machine. But why does knowing the terminology actually matter?
Wow.
Like whether I call it a small bag or a personal item, It doesn't change the fact that I'm standing in a security line without my shoes on, getting yelled at to take my laptop out.
Uh-huh.
The stress feels completely unavoidable.
The stress is unavoidable, but the helplessness is not.
Okay, tell me more.
Specialized, highly regulated environments strip away our natural autonomy. When you enter an airport, you surrender your bodily autonomy to scanners and pat-downs,
Right.
your spatial autonomy to cues, and your temporal autonomy to the departures board. You are entirely subjected to a system you do not control.
You're submitting to the machine.
Precisely. If you do not understand the lexicon of that machine, you experience the environment as a chaotic, threatening assault.
That makes sense.
But knowing the exact terminology gives you a semblance of psychological agency.
Right.
It lowers your cognitive load.
Because you know what to expect.
Exactly. If you understand the strict volumetric limits of a personal item versus a carry-on, you aren't surprised at the gate. If you know the rules of the game, you transform from a confused piece of cargo into an informed participant.
You can anticipate the processing, rather than just being a victim of it.
Yes.
That reframes the entire experience. By learning the vocabulary, you are actively participating in the processing, not just letting the processing happen to you.
You are reading the bro codes instead of just being scanned.
Wow, yes. So, you survive the transit hub, you get off the plane, and eventually you hit the ultimate transition, moving into your own space.
Yes. We arrive at the threshold of true independence.
Securing a physical space that is entirely your own.
Exactly.
Our final source is a beautifully honest personal essay from a recent college grad going through the process of renting their very first apartment.
And the contrast they describe between expectation and reality is pretty striking.
Oh, completely. The initial feeling is this massive excitement. You're finally escaping the rules of the dorms or your parents' house.
You can decorate however you want.
But that illusion of total freedom is immediately met with the immense, crushing anxiety of the market.
Because, just like the airport, there is a complex, often predatory system to navigate.
And the stakes are infinitely higher than missing a flight.
So much higher.
The realities of apartment hunting are incredibly harsh. The author describes filtering through endless rental apps, finding these listings that look bright and pristine online.
But when they actually go to the viewing, the rooms are dark, dingy, and smell deeply of mold.
They look absolutely nothing like the carefully curated photos.
Right. And then the financial traps emerge.
The hidden fees. Sudden maintenance costs or service fees that were conveniently omitted from the advertised rent.
The author even details a terrifying near miss with a scammer.
Yeah, a fake landlord who demanded a substantial cash deposit before they would even unlock the door for a viewing.
It's an environment that actively preys on naivety. If you don't know the rules, you will get fleeced.
Luckily, friends warn the author not to transfer any money. And eventually, they have a breakthrough.
They do.
They find a bright shared room facing a green space with a patient landlady who actually takes the time to walk them through the process.
Notice the psychological shift in the author's behavior at this point, though.
What do you mean?
They describe entering a state of hypervigilance. They are no longer passively accepting whatever is offered.
Right. They are meticulously checking the water pressure in the shower, testing every single appliance.
And obsessively reading the contract to understand the breakdown of rent, deposits, and utility splits.
They are taking ownership of the space before they even sign the lease.
Exactly.
And when they finally do sign and they get those physical keys in their hand, there's this incredible emotional high.
Oh, I'm sure.
They spend the entire afternoon frantically decorating, putting up books, posters, and plants, doing everything to make the space explicitly theirs.
But then the sun goes down.
Yeah. This is perhaps the most poignant observation in the essay, the emotional whiplash of the first night.
It's so real.
The author describes lying in bed that first night, and the sheer joy just completely evaporates. They are hit with this sudden, sharp, suffocating loneliness.
Because there are no roommates laughing down the hall.
No family members shuffling around the kitchen, just them lying in the dark, listening to the traffic outside.
What is happening neurologically and psychologically in that moment is the sudden realization of total liability.
Total liability.
Yes, the social scaffolding has been completely removed. It is the psychological weight of what we call the first threshold of adulthood.
And that isolation immediately brings practical, frustrating challenges. The author details these moments of absolute failure,
Like the leaky bathroom faucet.
where they suddenly realize there is no maintenance hotline to call. They have to figure out how to communicate with the landlord and arrange a fix.
Or even more dramatically, the power shutting off completely.
Simply because they forgot to set up the electricity bill.
It wasn't included in the rent, and they missed the deadline.
So they are sitting there in the dark, relying on the flashlight on their phone to see their new posters.
Yeah.
I have to ask, though, how does a frustrating logistical failure, like sitting in a dark room because of an unpaid bill, actually force emotional maturity? It just seems like a bureaucratic mistake.
It breaks the illusion of a safety net.
Nope.
When you live in a dorm or a family home, the infrastructure of your life is maintained by unseen forces. The lights turn on, the water is hot, the internet works.
Right, you don't even think about it.
But when you are sitting alone in the dark because of your own negligence, it is a visceral, undeniable manifestation of your own responsibility.
Wow.
It forces the realization that no one is coming to save you. You are the sole architect of your survival.
You are your own IT department, your own maintenance crew, and your own financial planner.
Exactly. The hardships aren't just roadblocks in the way of independence, they are the actual mechanism by which independence is built.
Precisely. If we synthesize all three of our sources today, a really profound through line emerges about the nature of agency.
It really does.
Whether you are actively enforcing a park lunch to save your brain from the digital overload of the afternoon slump,
Or you are memorizing the strict vocabulary of a security checkpoint, so you aren't treated like a helpless piece of cargo.
or you are sitting alone in the dark, furiously trying to pay an electric bill on your phone, it is all the exact same fundamental shift.
The shift from being a passive passenger who just complains about the turbulence to becoming the active pilot of your own life.
That's beautifully put.
True independence isn't just about having the freedom to decorate your walls however you want. It is the heavy, empowering realization that you are responsible for how you interact with your environment.
Right.
You have to learn the rules of the spaces you inhabit, whether it's your own bedroom, your office, or an international transit hub, so that you can navigate them on your own terms.
Today, we've taken quite a journey. We learned how to hack our mundane, robotic routines with small victories and finish rituals that physically rewire our stress responses.
We decoded the stressful, hyper-regulated architecture of airports so we can navigate them with psychological agency instead of panic.
And we embraced the messy, terrifying, but ultimately empowering reality of stepping over the threshold into our first real home.
We examined the micro habits of the morning and the macro milestones of adulthood and found the same requirement for active participation in both.
Now, I want to turn this over to you, listening to this deep dive right now. Think about the physical spaces in your own day. What is your finish ritual?
How do you actively separate your obligations from your own time?
Are you letting your environment dictate your mood? Or are you taking small steps to reclaim your space?
And as you reflect on that, I want to leave you with a completely new thought to ponder, something that builds on everything we've discussed.
Oh, all right. Let's hear it.
Think about how much of our lives now happen entirely online. With the massive rise of remote work and digital spaces, the physical boundaries we've been talking about today, the commute, the office door, even the airport terminal, they're vanishing.
That's true.
If your laptop is your office, your transit hub, your shopping mall, and your entertainment center all at once, how do you build a boundary?
Wow.
How do you prevent yourself from becoming a passive passenger when the entire journey, the entire environment is happening on a single glowing screen?
If changing clothes sets a physical boundary, what is the digital equivalent of the finish ritual?
Exact.
That is a massive question that will definitely keep me thinking tonight. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the spaces around you, whether they are made of concrete, drywall, or pixels.
Absolutely.
Keep exploring, and whatever you do tomorrow morning, try not to let the alarm clock turn you back into a machine. Catch you on the next one.